What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Grind Force Gaming. Nova here, and as always, we've got DatSkat with us to talk about something very interesting. DatSkat, what's going on?
Well, we were kind of thinking about a couple of their different tier lists or kind of ideas for videos, and we kind of zoomed out a little bit
Yeah.
and did a little speculation on all these new fighters that are getting released. Like, what are the common themes? How are the devs steering us through the meta that they're creating?
Yeah.
And that often changes, at least in other games that I've played, with the addition of new fighters or the adjustment of fighters' skills or how they work. And we kind of saw some themes here and
Yeah.
wanted to make a quick video here just discussing where we saw the trajectory of Street Fighter
Yes.
Duel.
The state of the game seems to be changing, and it's
Hmm.
with this underlying shift in fighter mechanic. And we have the 6-month anniversary coming up, and I think that this is a really important thing to notate because we don't really know what's going to happen with that yet. We don't know. Obviously, there's no way to predict, but I feel like the hints are there already, right? I mean,
Yes.
just by recent fighter release, like what are the commonalities? Speed increase, speed
Hmm.
reduction, dispelling of buffs, um, single target damage. We're looking at, in my opinion, more of a boss fighter meta.
It seems to be like the PvP meta is pretty set. Like we
Yeah,
have some fighters that are doing the PvP stuff very well. People like C Viper,
correct.
and but with bosses, like what are you, Trendy Cammy, Sagat, like these are your fighters, and I would argue that some of these fighters don't quite have their full team yet.
Yeah,
And and a lot of the rewards, at least the rewards that are worth fighting for, are coming from events, and a lot of these
correct.
events are based off of boss fights.
Correct.
So,
And they're the
you know,
most fun part of the event, in my
I
opinion.
I yeah, I very much so agree. So like, you might have built your Guile team to deal with campaign, which is a great idea, and you should do that. But maybe your second team needs to be a boss fighting team,
Yeah,
just so you can start capitalizing on the time value that is the events within the game.
correct. I mean,
Um,
scoring high in these events is what's allowing people to get more divination tickets, which is
yeah,
allowing you to get more master and infernal fighters. And that's really where we kind of see things going. I think it's just the reality now. I think everyone was, myself included, getting kind of frustrated with the lack of release of normal faction fighters. But at some point, you just come around to it and like, look, if we can start scoring better in these events, getting
yeah,
divination tickets is no issue whatsoever. Like as an example here. So I mentioned some of the things that we're seeing as trends. Let's take a quick look at one of them here right now. We're going to look at Mummy Doll Seam first.
okay, yep,
Now, I know he kind of got dunked on by some people. I think I even said he wasn't like that great, but I think he's good for bosses. And
hmm
what we're seeing with his kit, whether or not you really want to utilize this for him or not, but it's the poison, and that's reducing the enemy team's speed. That's incredible for
it
bosses.
it's a manipulation.
Hmm.
And a lot of these boss units are centered around their skills going off as quickly as possible. Like, look
Right.
at Trendy Cammy. The
Right.
more kicks you do with her, the more DPS you're gonna get. So if you
Correct.
can manipulate speed in your favor or benefit by debuffing the enemy, that's awesome, and you should do
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Like, um, you really should. That's why B Zangief in his C2 is just kind of king. Like,
Right. Oh, it's
having him on
amazing.
the field and using his C2 to boost damage on a C3
Yep.
and giving you all that speed, like
Yep.
that's why you see him everywhere. You see him in
Correct.
campaign, you see him in the PvP fights. But now I think we're gonna start seeing other fighters pop up
Right. Because you're not
in
even
those
seeing
in those slots.
his C2 realized against bosses either because they're mostly resistant to stun.
Mostly resistant to
So
that
you're
stun, and
not
the
getting
stun
the
is what gets
yeah,
the boost going
correct.
off.
So who
So,
else did we have? At the same time, what we had Summer Ibuki come out, right?
oh yeah, she is a
Massive
speed queen.
speed buffer. Massive
Yeah.
speed buffer. That's her whole kit is about speed.
Yep.
We can go back even farther. Vega. single target,
Yeah.
bleed damage,
You want
huge.
him stacking as much as
Yep.
possible. Yeah.
Look at Sagat. Crazy survivability. He's got a C3 that's 100% based on dealing as much damage to bosses as possible
Yeah.
because it works off of his garage, right? And that's where it says specifically hitting a boss.
Yep.
And it's single target.
On
Let's
the 3 out of
look.
3, it does.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct.
100%.
Who else do we have here? Diviner Rose.
Yep.
She's doing debuffing on the enemy team. Removal of debuffs on your team and getting debuffed by bosses is huge. She's also doing speed up. And then let's look even more down here too. Fashion Ken. Now I know I made fun of him in a video that I made, but it's because he's probably single use and we don't have his team yet. His kit currently doesn't work with other people, right? I just want to be clear about that. But he's
Yeah.
doing DOT. He's doing speed leeching. We've never seen this on a fighter before.
Never seen that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's also doing single target damage on his two primary skills. Single target on his super, single target on his C3.
So I think the devs probably, had a couple situations. They needed to launch the game and give the people, us, the
Right.
consumers of the game, enough meat to play with, right?
Right. Yep.
So they released all the factions. There's a functionality within everything, and then slowly, as the game has progressed in time and is aged, they released a bunch of Master and Infernal fighters that a
Right.
lot of us were complaining, oh, well, they're just so hard to get. But now that the game's been out for a while, we're starting to see these fighters crop up and start completing teams.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
so the use case is starting uh, to come full circle with certain fighters.
Right. Oh yeah,
And
you're
now
you're
that we
totally
see
correct.
the manipulation of speed, especially, I want to highlight the manipulation of speed as one of the key marquees that the game said, okay, you know what? We have the baseline. Now we're going to start needing to get specific on what we're doing, the roles that people are going to start filling,
Yep.
and what's important with the game. And I think speed is going to be king coming up.
Oh yes.
Um,
And
so look out for the next meta, and when you start to see these teams evolve within the events, and the team that was used in HWA, 2 HWAs ago, might not be used in the next HWA
right.
because they might have solved some of
Yeah.
these issues. So
And I think
keep
it
keep your keep your eye out for changes in the meta with regard to
right.
speed.
I think it's always changing. We see this with games like this all the time. The meta shifts. And I think right now, because if you think about it, like if we're all being honest with ourselves here, you can beat the entire story mode with all the normal faction fires we started the game with. Oh,
Sure.
with time, you're going to be able to do that. So all these fighters now, like we're just in a different rotation. And
Yep.
another thing that we've noticed too that I forgot to mention was a change in survivability. Sagat is extremely hard to take down. Gokin is very hard to take down. He makes everybody else very hard to take down. And then
Mm-hmm.
we can't forget to mention Witch Jury.
Yeah. She's new
She,
and fun.
yeah, she resurrects herself. I can only imagine that when paired with Gokin, she will resurrect a second time. It's
It's
just,
possible. We'll have to
it's
see.
possible. Can't
Yeah.
test it, unfortunately, but I would imagine that would be the way that it works because her kit already makes her do that. So the second time she gets KO'd, if Gokin's still alive, he's going to make her come back too. So with all the lifesteal and everything, we're looking at even as a DPS unit, she's single target as well. Single target super, single target C2, and her C3 when you have all 6 vehicles is also, well, you need to have 3 to get it. It's also
Yeah.
single target.
Yeah.
Like these are boss fighters. These are not PvE. These are not PvP.
Nope.
So we are
Hey,
just seeing a very clear shift to speed, whether it's gaining it or taking it away, buffing and removing of debuffs, and survivability of fighters. Like that just speaks to boss meta
it's the it's
100%.
it's the boss makeup, and
Yeah.
part of this could be, Nova, that the devs really want to start pushing the events more,
Yes.
because I think a lot of these players that are getting toward the late game or into the late game, like, campaign is a very slow grind these
Sure.
days.
Sure.
Really hard to beat any of these missions.
Yep.
So now the game is starting to turn to events. So what makes the
Correct.
game more fun for people that are kind of stalling out in the campaign, don't see daily progress? It's building units that do specific things.
Correct.
And what are the events? They're generally pointed problems. Like
Yep.
the Ken fight from the last Devil May Cry event.
Yeah.
That Ken fight was really interesting because it there was a DOT on your third line fighter.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you couldn't rely on putting your damage dealer out there like that,
Right.
which made you have to change your team up. But the
Yep.
point is, it was a pointed effort to make
Right.
you get a team to work best for that event.
Correct.
That's what we're seeing coming out with these
Correct.
new fighters. It's a event based strategy to give us people that are kind of getting into the late game or maybe even in the middle game that the game kind of just slows down. It gives them
Yep.
something else to shoot for.
Yeah, it's what we work to build in between the events at this point. That's I'm not here chasing story nodes anymore. Like I could probably be farther than I am right now if I actually tried, but like I'm all about events.
Yep.
And noticing this shift the more we've been talking about this stuff, I'm like, this makes sense actually. So
It
if you have not noticed this, I recommend starting to look at some of these fighters because maybe you can't get them to SS or whatever, but start
so
because this is what we're seeing happen.
if you're kind of down on the game or you've been watching some of the other content from some of the other content creators that's been kind of negative toward the game, um, I would suggest just maybe do yourself a favor if you are enjoying playing the game and just zoom out a little bit.
Yeah,
Kind of try to understand what the release of multiple characters over a period of time are trying to do. And that
correct.
might give you an insight on who to build and how to build them with regard to these events and these
Right.
problems that the devs are putting in front of us.
Yeah. And like I said, keep in mind if you're down about divination pulls, start building the fighters that are going to get you better placement and you're going to get better rewards. And all these events, you're going to get way more divination tickets.
Yep.
It gets easier with time. So stick to the grind, look at the bigger picture, zoom out, like DatSkat said. The meta is changing, the game is changing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going in a good direction. I'm excited to actually see that this is happening. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. Love to hear what you think. Throw a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next videos. Cheers.
See ya.